everybody, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's video, I have all my spooky friends here with me because we have a Halloween doll repaint. This video is in collaboration with some incredibly talented doll artists here on YouTube. Val Kitty's World, The Dolly Geek, The Doll Fairy, Mr. Super Customs, Moonlight Jewel, Cairo's Workshop, Hexgen, HLE Crafts, Etalon, Enchantarium, Delightful, Anastasia Custom. I'm gonna link everyone down below in the description box. I highly recommend checking out their videos because, in my opinion, everyone's style turned out really cool. So I'm excited to watch the videos, and yeah, they're all down there for your binging pleasure. So what are we making this year? Last year I made what I would identify as a very kind of like stereotypical rendition of a vampire, and I love her. Like, I really love her. I also really like vampire dolls. It sounds hella corny, but I like vampire BJDs. I like their little fangs. I think they're real cute. So this year I wanted to make her a friend, but in a completely different style, not quite so stereotypical. And one of my favorite vampire medias is Grimes's Kill V Maim video. I really love that song. I love the whole style of the video. I guess the style is like sort of, I don't know what to call it, like synthwavey. I don't know. I'm not good at identifying styles. Just go look at the video. It's a really good song. But she has like a raven sort of dark angel look in it, so I wanted to incorporate that into the design, and I wanted to make like a vampire raven queen. Does it sound like a mishmash of words? It kind of is, but I'm here for it. As I was also saying, I really like vampire BJDs, and one that I really love is Fairyland's Little Fee Helloooooooo. I actually have the big version for her. I got it recently and like I love it so much, but I really like the expression of her doll where she has her tongue sticking out. I wanted to try to replicate that expression onto this doll, so we're gonna do some face mods. So who are we using? Clawdeen. Finally, we're using Clawdeen. I've been talking about how I want to paint her for like months, and I just haven't. So today's the day, Clawdeen. I'm also using a Nina Thumbell body from Ever After High because I just like the aesthetic of their bodies more. Nina Thumbell is a pretty good match for Clawdeen's skin tone. I don't know whose hands she has. They're looking a little strange and light, but we're going to color match them later. On to prepping. So I do all of the boring basics of cutting off her hair and then putting her head in hot water to soften up the vinyl so that I can pop her head off. Going in through the neck hole with a screwdriver and scraping around in there so that I can pull the glue gunk out through the neck hole with needle nose pliers, and removing the factory paint with 100% acetone. I've watched enough tutorials on YouTube to know that if I start sculpting on top of the squishy vinyl, I'm gonna have epoxy popping off left and right, and I didn't want that. So I decided to do something new to me and shrink down the head. I'm doing the fast shrink 100% acetone method, so I'm just filling up a jar and letting the head soak for 2 hours. If y'all want a full walkthrough on head shrinking, I'm gonna link Durilly Dolls down in the description box. She's like the head shrinking guru. I don't know if she's like the one who discovered that this is a thing, but she's definitely the person that everybody talks about. So after 2 hours, the head blew up like a balloon. And also I used gloves that did not work for the acetone, so they're just melting all over the place. But I let it sit for about 2 days, and it shrunk down really, really well. Moving back over to Nina, I need to harvest her body. So I am heating up her head with a blow dryer and popping it off. Since she is going to have a smaller head, I'm cutting down the neck peg a little bit with some wire cutters. Fun fact, for a head to stay on, all you really need is that little round bit at the bottom. I just kept this further bit on here because I don't know. I don't know why I did at the time, but I did. This is how much the head shrunk down in one pass of acetone. I only did one pass, and I think I got quite a bit of shrinking out of it. It's really interesting how the features on the shrunken heads get more pronounced. I just think her features look way sharper here, but I didn't want her to have wolf ears, so I wanted to cut them off, and I'm going to be putting them on the side of her head. For hair, I knew that I wanted her to have a high ponytail and I wanted it to be blue, so I picked up two of these metallic hairs from the Doll Planet, one in Eigen Blue and Endless Seas. One's a little bit lighter and the other one's a little bit darker. They're both gorgeous, but I decided that the brighter shade would probably work a little bit better. I painted her head blue with acrylic paint in case there's any gaps in the reroot. It's not going to be as noticeable, and I'm only rooting around her hairline because since we're making a high ponytail, if I were to reroot her whole head, it would just be like way too much hair. She'd have the beefiest ponytail ever. That's just not the look we're going for. So I heard that rerooting heads when they're shrunken is kind of difficult, and it is. I would recommend doing it as the head is shrinking just because it's a little bit squishier. I only did the hairline, so it wasn't so bad, but I would imagine if you're doing the whole head, that would be a little bit of a nightmare. It's like real hard. Like if I were to throw it at your head, you'd be like, ow. She got some big old holes on her head, so we're going to be covering that up with some fabric. I'm just gluing some fabric down. I only had green fabric, so I'm going to be going over it with some blue paint in a little bit so it color matches. I went on the inside of her head through a neck hole with some Fabri-Tac glue to make sure that the rooted hair stayed in place. I made some wefts with doll hair, and I'm doing a method that I saw in Enchantarium's Jessie Team Rocket video where they took wefts and they like wrapped it around the head when they're doing a high ponytail and glued the hair in place. And so this is not the easiest of methods to do. Like in the end it looks really good, but my god, I was having some issues. I recommend using craft glue because it's sticky, so it just makes the hair hold better and it's not like popping off left and right. That just really worked well for me. So this is where the mistake of my life happened. Oh god. Okay, so I assumed that since the acetone melts the plasticizer in the head that it wouldn't expand with heat. So I took an X-Acto blade and I opened up the neck hole. I opened it up too far. So this was happening. I thought that if I built up the top of the neck that it would, you know, hold it in place with epoxy sculpt that built it up. And the epoxy just popped off. So I had to completely redo the process that I just did with shrinking the head and doing her hair. Yay! Love that for me! There was no way to fix this that is in my knowledge, so the only option I really had was to redo it. I did redo it better though, so that's good. I realized that the head, the top of it, was like too flat on the previous version, so I had to build it up. You have to do this because when you have like a ponytail, like it's not just like flat on your scalp, like there's a little bit of volume to the top of it, which just doesn't really come across when you reroot a doll's head and then you like pull her hair back. So I am building up like a little bump it thing up there with some hot glue and epoxy sculpt, and by the way, the outcome is hideous, but it's okay. It's okay. Like, look at this. She got a weird little bumpy head. We're going to be covering up with hair like we did earlier, so no biggie. I just wanted to show you how the hair wefts wrap around the head to completely cover it. It's not dried yet, but this is kind of the look that you get. On to the face mods, the entire reason that I shrunk her head to begin with. So I am just cutting a lot of her bottom lip. I realized that all I really needed to do was to separate her upper and her lower lips from each other and then shave down where they connect a lot and also the front of the lips. And that would give me a kind of like enough room to stick out her tongue and also have her tooth coming down so that it's not like curved on that bottom lip, because before it was protruding a little bit too much, so it looked curved over the lip and I just didn't like how it looked. To create the tongue, I took a flat bit of epoxy and I just wrapped that, curved it around her upper lip, and took a needle and indented the middle. Since I shaved down a lot of her lower lip, I wanted to build it back up, so I'm doing so with epoxy. And I found that the best way to do features on a face is to smooth them down as much as you can while the epoxy is wet with water instead of relying on sanding paper later once it's dry. I just feel like that gives you sort of the most natural gradient between epoxy and vinyl. I put her little itty bitty tooth on there and built up her upper lip a little bit because as I was carving with the X-Acto blade, it got a little bit jagged. In retrospect, I probably should have given her another fang, but I don't know, maybe she got it knocked out in a fight or something. Overall, I'm happy with the sculpting. On to the ears. So I've been really liking, okay, this all like leads back to stuff I've been liking in BJDs recently. I really like fluffy kind of wispy ears, and I wanted to give those to my doll, even though maybe it doesn't make a lot of sense because do vampires have fluffy wispy ears? I don't know. They do in whatever world I'm concocting. So I put her ears on a pin and then I sculpted around them with epoxy sculpt and gave her some little fluffy bits. Or like little wispy bits. I don't know if they're hair. I don't think they're hair. My husband was like, she looks like a gremlin. Why did you do that? You know what? Maybe she's part gremlin, raven queen, vampire, okay? It's my life. Let me live it. I also put her hair up at some point while I was sculpting or after I was sculpting, and I tried to capture it on camera, but I'm not gonna lie, this was bafflingly hard to give her a high ponytail with nylon doll hair. I was unsuspecting. It took me an hour and I almost cried. I don't know why this was so difficult. If you're gonna do a high ponytail on a doll, please use yarn hair. Don't use nylon. It was so difficult. I think because it's slippery, there was just flyaways. I would do like the tightest ponytail and there would still be a flyaway and it was driving me insane. I also attached her ears after I cried. So the ears look like I just kind of like glued some ears to her head. There's like no transition. So I'm taking epoxy and I am just smoothing them out a little bit. Oh my god, yes queen, she has ears. So I have to obviously paint them. They're not quite the right color. Took some acrylic paint, mixed it together and made a skin tone shade. I painted her lips and her little tongue as well. At some point while I was modding her and putting her head back on, I sanded off her panties, and because she has a sort of deeper complexion, that area looks very gray when you sand it down, so I'm just taking some matte varnish and putting that on top and it eliminates the gray color. To give the doll's face a paper-like quality so that I can draw on it, I sprayed her face 3 times with Mr. Super Clear, waiting 15 minutes between each spray and wearing a respirator mask. And then I started painting and I was having a hard time with this face up. So I think I was overthinking it, and overthinking it made me kind of nervous. So I got to basically this point and I was like, I hate it. I haven't really been in this boat for a while. Typically I know how to fix things that I don't like, or I just kind of go into face-ups confidently, so I don't know, it was a little humbling, I guess, to have to completely wipe a face. With this rendition, I decided to go with black lipstick instead of the like sort of red nude lips that she had earlier. I don't know, I like deeper complexions with black lipstick. I just think it looked kind of cool, so that's why I did that. And when I'm sketching on her eyes, I'm sketching them in with a red watercolor pencil. I decided to go for a smaller eye size than I did previously, and specifically smaller irises. Taking a light peach watercolor pencil, I'm coloring in her waterline. I decided instead of just doing straight black lips, I wanted to create a bit of an ombre effect, so I'm adding some blue pencil on top of the black acrylic paint. I'm beginning to add definition with 2 tones of brown. The first is a warm, lighter brown, and I'm kind of applying this a little bit more haphazardly around the eyes, the nose, and the mouth. And then the second is a darker brown that I'm concentrating on more specific areas. For the blush that I'm applying all over her face, I'm using a warm, deep red color. So I'm adding blue tones around the face. If you've been around this channel before, you know that I really like that effect. And also veins with a blue pencil. I've been told that you can't really see these things on deeper complexions. I wouldn't really know, but I also don't really care. Like, I just really like how it looks. So I'm gonna keep adding them no matter what skin tone it is. To give her eyes a bit of a shiny quality, I'm taking a rose gold watercolor pencil and I'm just coloring in certain areas around her lid. I typically work pretty monochromatically, which I don't know, I think is kind of a flaw of mine, but I'm doing it with this doll, so I gave her blue eyes so that they would go with her blue hair, and I'm creating a bit of an ombre in her iris from dark blue to light blue. I gave her some lip wrinkle lines with my light blue pencil. To make her face look more 3D, I went in with a light beige pan pastel, and I'm putting that basically all over her face, underneath her eyes, above her eyes, her nostrils, her chin, all of it. Added a bit of shading to the curve around her tongue with my red watercolor. More lip wrinkles, but in this case I'm going with paint and going over the pencil. To make her eye color look a little bit more blended, I'm using corresponding light and dark blue pastels. To make the whites of her eyes look a little bit more 3D, I added blue watercolor pencil below the top of her eye. Onto the brows. So I'm taking a blue pastel and I'm doing a quick kind of shape that I want with the brows and cleaning it up with a kneaded eraser. I added a bit of highlight to the tongue with a light pink watercolor pencil, and then I'm taking my white watercolor pencil and adding really specific lines of highlights around the eyes and the lips. Oh hell yeah, on his sparkles. So I used macro pearlix pigment and just put it all over the face. Typically I wouldn't, like, I would kind of lean towards gold on a deeper complexion, but she's so cool toned that I thought gold would just look a little bit weird. I'm beginning my final stages of highlights around the face, so I'm adding white watercolor in the inner tear duct, below the eyes, above the eyes, as well as brightening up the whites of the eyes. I also added some to the tongue to make it look even more 3D. With a medium blue pencil, I gave her some eyebrow hair, and I went in and gave her some like thick, wild brows, which I feel like is like kind of my thing. Like, I just love dolls with thick, wild brows. They're just sticking out in all sorts of directions. I was trying to stay away from warm pearlix pigment on the face, but copper just looks really good on tanner complexion, so I had to add that on top of the blush. It just looks real nice. I love me a glowy eye, so I took some light blue watercolor and I added a ring around her iris to create a kind of glowing or halo effect. And on the left side, I added a bit of metallic blue watercolor on top of that. To make the brow hair look sharper, I'm going in with blue watercolor and I'm just flicking some little brow hairs on top of the pencil brow hairs that I created. With metallic blue watercolor paint, I'm adding a line on the outer portion of her eye. This is to create a sort of liner effect in that area, and then I'm flicking some lashes with it, and I love how this turned out. Like, I really like it. I also added some to the inner corner. To give her eyeballs a little bit of a bloodlust look, I tapped some red metallic watercolor onto her pupil. Going back into my metallic watercolor blue paint, I flicked some little blue lines on her eyebrows, and I've been really liking this lately. Like, it looked real nice. I don't like, I've tried to do like white highlights on the eyebrows because I've seen people do it and it looks really good when they do it, and when I do it, it looks like booty. So I found that doing this sort of highlighted effect, especially if it's a unnatural hair color, it looks really good. After I sketched in the lashes, I went over top of them with watercolor paint, black watercolor paint. This is just to make the lashes as dark as they can get, so it really draws your eye into that area. The paintbrush I'm using is like super tiny. If you're ever curious about the paintbrushes that I use, they are listed down in the description box. Since she's licking her lips, I wanted her to have like the remnants of blood on her chin, and she's like licking it to get it away. So I took some red watercolor, like a deeper red, and I kind of like speckled that onto her chin. And then I took some metallic red watercolor, put that on top, and then a lighter red acrylic paint to create a highlight. On to baby hairs. I love me some baby hairs, but I'm just adding some around her forehead with a blue watercolor pencil, just making them nice and like little curly cues. So cute. I did my kind of stereotypical eye shines that I usually do. I feel like I want to do, I don't know if I'll put this on YouTube. I might not. I might just like experiment for experiment's sake. But I want to do a couple face ups where I just experiment, and I'm not so concerned with whether or not it looks good, because I feel like with YouTube, when you do YouTube videos and you do doll repaints, you're like so concerned that everything kind of looks good together. At least I am, that I don't feel comfortable experimenting, and I think that's bad. I think experimenting leads to growth. So I might put this up on YouTube. I might not. Maybe I'll just experiment for experimentation's sake. I feel like if I put it up on YouTube, I might feel obligated to paint things in my style, and that's just not what I want. I want to be able to experiment because I see so many cool techniques in face-ups that I just want to play around with. With all that being said, I gave her a little upside down heart on her cheek. I put Vallejo gloss varnish on her lips and her tongue and everything, and she's done. Oh my god, she's a mood. I love her. Like, I actually do really like her. I don't think I'm gonna paint a Clawdeen for a while. I feel like this one traumatized me a little bit. Onto the body. So I blushed the body with the same tones that I used on her face. So reds, browns, mauves, blues, things like that. As a bit of an ode back to last year's Halloween vampire doll, I gave her some bloody hands. This is the outcome of blushing her face and her body, and I completely forgot how much I love Monster High dolls on Ever After High bodies. Like, it's just like the best combo ever. On to her clothes. Just a lot of blue fabric. There's a lot of blue happening in this doll. The first outfit piece that I'm making is a bodysuit. So I started by hemming each side, and I'm gluing that down with Fabri-Tac glue. I sewed the front and the back together good side to good side, sewing up the side seam and also at the crotch. On her skirt, I guess. I don't really know what to call this thing. It kind of reminds me of Xena the Warrior Princess. So I took these 3 panels of pleather and I'm sewing this blue vinyl fabric to the inside of each one of them. I'm going to add more panels later just to make it a little bit more voluminous, but for now I just sewed a belt to the top. I got a bunch of like cute little sewing doll doodads off of Etsy recently. One of them is this belt buckle. It's all tiny and real cute. So I sewed that to the belt that I sewed at the top of the skirt Xena thing. I don't know what this is. What is it called? I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna do it. So I found something on Amazon that kind of looks like this, and it's called a Punk Rave Women's Punk Daily Half Skirt Woven Fabric Adjustable Streetwear Hip Hop Personality Skirt. So this is her personality skirt. I wanted her to have 2 belts kind of crisscrossing across her stomach, so I'm just sewing those in place so that they'll lay on top of her stomach. Later I'm going to be sewing her into the skirt so that I can get this cross effect. Typically I don't really like doing that with dolls, but sometimes you have to. I also typically, when I do it, I kind of sew them in a very simple way so that if I wanted to take the outfit off of them for whatever reason, it's just like a couple snips of scissors. It's not really that big of a deal, and then it's easy to sew them back in if I want to put them back in the outfit. If y'all saw my delightful bunny BJD doll repaint video, then you would know that I got a little itty bitty eyelet kit recently, and I just really like making corsets now, so I'm making a corset. I took a rectangle of latex fabric and I'm just hemming it with some glue, and then I'm taking the eyelet kit and just eyeletting it up. It's just a really easy process and I just like how it looks. I'll link the kit that I got down below in the description box if you guys are looking for some doll size eyelets. Little itty bitty eyelets and a little itty bitty corset. This just makes me want to make shoes, which I feel like I never want to make shoes, so it's kind of impressive. To lace up the corset, I found metallic embroidery thread, which apparently is a thing, and it's really pretty. Like, I wish I embroidered more, but I'm using it. I got it strictly to lace up the corset, so I added some glue to the ends of the embroidery thread. This is so that the thread doesn't fray and stuff, and I laced it up, and this was kind of annoying, I'm not gonna lie, but I like the effect. I wanted her to have like one sleeve on, like an asymmetrical thing. Fashion. Okay, so I am just sewing that together, good side to good side, up the sleeve and then flipping it. I left 2 strips of fabric on the sleeve so that I can wrap a ring around the end of one of them and sew that in place. Later, once I clothe the doll, I'm going to be wrapping the other strip around the waist of the doll and sewing it in place on that ring. I wanted to make this doll a wing cape, and I was very inspired by Kesha's Praying music video. She has like a wing cape on. It's like the coolest thing ever. So I wanted to recreate one, but obviously crappier because I'm bad at sewing. So I cut this bit of fabric out and I added a bit of interfacing to it. I cut a bunch of different sizes of feather shapes out and also made her a collar for the cape. And then I'm taking each one of the feather shapes and I'm gluing them with Fabri-Tac glue onto the cape base. I wasn't crazy about how the inside of the cape looked, so I sewed some sort of shiny blue fabric onto the inside of there, and I sewed a little bit onto the inside of the collar. I wanted to give her collar the same feather treatment as the cape, so I glued some feather shapes onto there, and then I sewed the collar and the cape together good side to good side. This is basically how the wing cape looks, and I'm pretty happy with it. Like, it's okay. It doesn't look as good as Kesha's, but like, it looks like a wing cape, so I'm happy. My expectations are kind of low with myself with sewing. To give her cape a strap, I took a little strip of blue vinyl and I sewed a ring to it. We're going to be making some stockings out of that shiny blue fabric that I did the lining of the cape with. And I got this, I think it's called like a rotary blade. I'm not even sure. I don't even know what I bought. But I saw Enchantarium using it, and it's really nice for floppy fabrics. I don't know. I just really dig it lately. I'm probably late to the party. But I sewed the stockings up the back and then flipped them. Now for boots. So I basically modified the stocking pattern that I had and cut out a shape with latex, the black latex that I used for the corset, and I hemmed the top of it. I sewed that up the back like I did with the stockings and flipped it. I decided that the inside of the boot just didn't look super cute, so I took some of that blue fabric that I made the stockings with, and I basically just sewed that to the top of the boot, kind of to look like lining, but it's not. It's really only in the top area. It's just for appearance purposes. Oh my goodness, they're almost kind of sort of done. I feel like this is like making boots is like pretty easy. Like, I dig it. I hate making shoes, but like it's not so bad. I made the soles of the shoes with some warbler that I warmed up with my hair dryer and then bent it in the shape of the bottom of the foot. I wanted her boots to have platforms, so I'm taking my best friend epoxy sculpt. I used to hate epoxy sculpt. Like, I was like, oh my god, this feels like boogers. Like, I hate it. But now I love it. Like, I don't know what I would do without it. Like, I'm very reliant on it, but I just built up a platform with that, and then I wrapped some around the toe of the boot. I took this silver half bead and I put that into the platform of her shoe because it looks kind of cool. I'll paint her shoes black, and I go over that with some dragonfly glaze. I'm not sure which color this is because I bought a pack of them and I don't know what the colors are. I've never bought the colors individually, but I put that on top of the black and it looks so good. I really like this dragonfly glaze stuff. It's pretty nice. Where her fabric on her boot and the sole meet, it was looking a little bit rough, so I took some embroidery thread and I glued that in place with some craft glue. I decided the blue of the embroidery thread looked just a little bit too intense, so I went over it and painted it with black paint. So this is her outfit so far. I just wanted to put her in it so that I could see what I was working with. At this point, I had made a pair of goggles out of craft foam, but I decided I hated it, so I decided to redo it with some flat silver wire. I made the base for the goggles out of the flat wire, just wrapped it, and to make the part where her eyes are going to be a little bit more perfect and circular, I took a ring and glued that in place with Elmer's glue all. After the glue dried, I cut a little piece of vinyl into a circle shape and glued that on top of the ring. Last but not least, for this base, I wanted to bring back again the circle shape, so I took some Elmer's glue all and I glued another ring on top of the vinyl. This is how they turned out. Overall, it was a pretty easy method to make goggles, so I'm happy with it. I took some more dragonfly glaze and I painted that over top of 2 strips of craft foam. These are going to be the straps that are going to be wrapping around her head. I then super glued the straps onto the goggles. To fasten those straps in place, I took a ring and I sewed that onto the craft foam. Here's how the goggles turned out, and I wrapped these around her head and I pinned it in place, so I didn't really get to be able to take any photos of these on her face because it was just really annoying to get them pinned onto her head in the place that I wanted, especially because it was super hard. I kept breaking needles. It was a nightmare. Last but not least, the last accessory that I want to make is an umbrella. I followed quite a bit of JackyOhhxo's video for how to make a doll umbrella, which I will link in the description box. It's a really useful doll umbrella tutorial, but I did alter it a little bit. I would recommend looking at her tutorial if you do want to make a doll umbrella because it's just way more in depth than I'm going to be going in with this doll repaint. I'm folding the fabric quite tightly and then I'm cutting the very tippity top of the fabric off, just a very little bit of it because I don't want the circle to be too big, and then I'm going across the bottom and cutting a straight line across there. I decided that I wanted to give her like a little bit of a fancy umbrella, so I have this black ruffle and I am sewing that to the edge of the umbrella. Then I cut some wire, and this is going to be the wire of the umbrella. I'm gluing that in place with some OOAK glue. This glue is actually like kind of great. It's kind of annoying, but it dries extremely clear, so I liked it. It's just real sticky. I got these little bird feet from Michael's a while ago, the craft store, and I decided they would be kind of perfect to put at the end of my umbrella pole. So I'm cutting the ring off with some wire cutters. I used a skewer for the pole and it was just like way too big, so I'm cutting that down kind of at the middle, and I'm keeping the pointy tip. So on a skewer, I think typically there's a pointy tip, but I wanted to use that for the top of the umbrella. I hot glued the bird foot onto the bottom of my pole. To make the transition from bird foot to umbrella pole, I am just smoothing a little bit of epoxy where they meet. Then we just paint the pole black. I went over the black with a quick coat of silver acrylic paint. So I don't know exactly like the parts of umbrellas or what they're called, but to make the thing that makes the umbrella go up and down, I am taking a strip of craft foam and I'm just gluing it, like wrapping it around a pole and gluing it so that it's a little bit thicker. I put that in place on the pole, and then I glue the pole to the fabric part of the umbrella. To make the fabric part and the thing that makes the umbrella go up and down connect, I'm taking some strips of blue paper, and it's like cardboard more so than paper, and I'm just cutting them and gluing them in place. So where the strips of cardboard hit the fabric part or the wire part, I am just cutting a little slit up the middle. This just makes it so that it just easily goes around the wire and it doesn't like pop off as easily. After all that was glued in place, I wrapped a bit of craft foam around the paper, and this is the look. I'm pretty happy with it. Like, is it a perfect umbrella? No. Am I an umbrella maker? No. But is it functional? Yes. And with all that being said, I'm done! Hell yeah! I'm really tired from this voiceover and just life recently, but I'm not going to go into that. I really hope that you like how she turned out. I think that she's like pretty stinking cute. I really like vampires. I swear next year I won't make a vampire. I'll try to broaden my horizons. But yeah, let me know what you guys think about her. And I took a couple pics of her with my last year's vampire, just a little vampire brood. Again, guys, all the people in this collab are linked down in the description box. I am excited to check out their videos, and I think y'all should be too. I think everybody did a lot of cool stuff. Anyway, guys, I hope you have the best Halloween ever. I hope you get like all the candy in the world. I'm gonna have a crappy Halloween because I'm moving, but like, I hope y'all have a better one than me. It doesn't really get much crappier than moving on Halloween anyway. So if you guys like this video, subscribe, it makes me happy, and I hope you guys are having the most beautiful day and have the best Halloween ever. Okay, I'm gonna go to bed. Bye!
Bye.